Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom-tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. Welcome back to today's episode. I'm very excited today. I've got Zac joining me about his experiences with AI. So Zac, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Kate. I am a maths and digital technology teacher. I've worked across regional WA from Kununurra all the way up in the north, all the way down to Albany now, and extending Karratha in between. I'm into my 10th year. And across that time, I've taken up a few minor leadership roles where I've been IT coordinator. So I've worked with other teachers to support them in implementing ICT in their classrooms. I've also set up a few BYD projects at different schools. But now I've moved into the more instructional space, leading the instructional coaches and the Gifted and Talented program at my school under the Program Coordinator Learning Excellence title. And I've also just started working with Curtin University in some initial teacher education around ICT and digital technologies.
Oh, that's really exciting. And just for our listeners, because half my listeners are outside Australia. So when you say Kununurra to Albany, how far is that? Or if you drove it or if you're kilometres, how big is our state?
It's somewhere in the realm of 2,000. I'm not sure exactly how many kilometres it is, but it's quite a way. It's a couple of days drive from one end to the other.
I think in the US, it's like Seattle to like Texas or Dallas or something like that. It's that sort of distance across the US. It is a long way down.
More than a day's worth of driving.
Yeah, unless you don't get cyclones in Albany, as you do in Kununurra.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is good. Oh, that's fantastic. So, bit of a background. I like you at two different areas. I'm a HASS, history and computer science, computer digitech teacher as well, being in IT before I got into teaching. I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting you can blend the two, and AI is feeding into that. So, a bit of a technical background. So, you're quite confident using computers in general then?
Yeah. IT as well. I did a lot of like retail stuff when I was younger and got into like freelance IT repairs and data recovery and stuff while I was at uni.
Yes, been there. That's all I did. So in terms of Digitech, and I'll just recap a little bit, you supported teachers in using their, I guess, more the traditional Microsoft type programs within the classroom. Is that what you did as one of your roles at one point?
A bit of that, utilising LMSs. So in our system, we've got Connect, which is our LMS. We've also all the online quiz platforms and embedding, switching people using the CMR model into making richer use of ICT in their classroom to encourage students to make better use of the technology and produce some cool artifacts with it.
Cool. That's excellent. So let's get on the topic of AI, which is here. So I guess what initially prompts you to explore AI in a teaching context? And was there any specific challenge you wanted to address initially, or did you dive in and just start playing with it?
Look, I imagine much like you, I'm just an early adopter of pretty much any technology that comes out. So I jumped on it pretty quickly. I've been keeping track of the machine learning stuff for a while, and I've been a big follower of the Tesla visual systems of self-driving.
Okay, yes. Yep.
It's following all of that.
Yeah.
So when ChatGPT came out, I was pretty excited. I jumped in on it right at the start, back when it couldn't even do maths. So
can it do maths now?
To an extent, yeah. It's simple enough maths that it can do fairly reliably. I remember back in the day, it could do simple arithmetic.
Yes.
But now it's got a lot better at that kind of thing. And it's got a lot better at inferring stuff and connecting with different platforms to actually do the maths, which is helpful. But yeah, I really got excited when I first saw the Khan Academy, the Khan Migo demos that they were doing. And I thought that's got a lot of potential. So I started jumping in, and it's still, unfortunately, not a technology we can use a lot with our students. But as a teacher, I can make use of it quite a bit. I would really like to get into running one locally, an AI model locally, so I don't have to deal with the concerns of data privacy. But yeah, initially it was all around offloading some of that really low-level cognitive load that drags on you through the day. Those repetitive tasks, the writing of the emails, at this point, most emails I'll write a few dot points into ChatGPT and it'll spit me back out an email that's in context and understands what I wanted out of email. I'll do a couple of quick edits and then off it goes. So rather than worry around all the wording and am I phrasing this the right way, it'll sort out a lot of that for me.
Certainly helpful.
It just makes things a little bit easier, especially you get to the end of the workday and you've taught a few classes and you're a bit burnt out and someone sent you an email asking for something that they don't need the answer for, but you can chuck them an email and just reply and it's not super taxing. And I found that very helpful. But generally I'm getting into differentiation, scaffolding, that kind of application of the tool. Aside from that, I'm also getting into using the tech for providing feedback to students. I'll accumulate student results in an Excel spreadsheet or something, and then I'll use the API to read that data and then kick me back a bit of feedback that I can then tweak for that student's context.
Okay, yep. And I guess before we get too far, what platforms have you chosen to actually use? Obviously, there's a lot out there now. And what are you steered towards?
I'm one of those people that I jumped on ChatGPT when it first came out. And I've been a paying member of that for a while. And I've played with a few others. I know our Department of Education's got Copilot for us, which is essentially ChatGPT with a skin.
Yes.
But no, I haven't committed to switching yet. I know there are some of them have better strengths in certain areas that I'd like to explore a bit more, but I haven't doubled down and committed to a deep dive in it.
No, you can get Google Gemini for a month free. So if you ever want to play with that. An interesting thing with the feedback, obviously out of term now, we don't have data, is using Notebook LM and the new infographic feature. So whether you can put all your data in, that creates a nice visual infographic feedback to your students, as opposed to what we do. Though ChatGPT does a pretty good infographic itself now. So when I was playing with it the other day. Yeah. So visual for things. Though I did try I use Gamma, but I did try their slide deck using Notebook. But when I export it, exports it all as PDFs. You can't, whereas Gamma, which I paid for, I can download as a PowerPoint. So obviously on their platform it's easy. I just thought, is it interesting? I think maybe if you send off to Google, the Google PowerPoint equivalent, it may work a bit better. But but Notebook's a good one to get into. It's got a lot of inbuilt features, and the interface is actually in many ways is nice and organized for people to actually use it.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT, I think still close to 80% of users use that platform in one form or another. Cool. That's excellent. So I guess in terms of how AI, obviously mentioned out things like emails, which is good because I suffer from proofreading after I hit send. I guess how has AI changed the way in planning your lessons and in your coordinator role, I guess? You mentioned student work, I guess a bit more detail on that, how you give that feedback or the process for your students. So in day-to-day practical terms, how does it make you? What are you doing? And is it making your life actually easier?
Yeah, look, I think perhaps the most pertinent example that I've got is where I'll pull data from an assessment. So as I'm marking, I'll fill in this spreadsheet.
So is this maths or computing or which subject?
It doesn't really matter what subject
it
is. But maths primarily. And so I take the student data. We've structured our assessments in a way that allows us to pretty easily determine where those marks are coming from. So using that method and providing a bit of background information as part of the prompt, I'm able to send off the information for each student's results, like how many marks out of 4 they got for whichever question and what that question was about, and repeatedly, obviously. And then it will spit back a generalized bit of feedback that's a paragraph or so long. I couple that up with the student's results and give that back after I've proofread them to make sure it's reflective of what the student's done. And I think for the most part, that's made my students a bit more reflective. They've actually taken the time to sit down and read and reflect on what they've been given. It needs to be short. A lot of my classes are all at school, so they can't be too big and they can't be too complex. But a couple of general points per assessment. So rather than on assessment day when I give them back their tasks and go, hey, look, here's your result, and I've written some feedback on the sheet. Here's also some generalized feedback that summarizes the areas that you should probably focus on for the next task or things that you might want to try for homework or revision leading into the next assessment. And it tends to work fairly well. You can use similar approaches for reporting and that kind of thing as well, depending on how your school's doing the reporting process.
Yes. Yeah, no, we don't do comments anymore. So a lot of schools have moved that way.
A single comment. Yeah. But yeah, I guess as far as student-facing stuff, for the most part, our lessons are fairly well planned already, and then it'll be a matter of differentiating and scaffolding things. And then in that space at the moment, I use MathSpace quite heavily.
Oh, yes.
And MathSpace has an AI companion tool built into it. And so my students will use that, again, to a very limited degree, because it's only got a couple of prompts per month or something on the plan that we're on.
Yes.
For each student. They can pay extra for themselves and they can get extra. But I've found that these kinds of tools and working asynchronously across different question sets and the students working with a degree of autonomy works quite well for differentiation, and it allows the students to progress at their own pace. It also allows me to track a lot of data, what they're doing and where they're up to and who needs help. And I suppose to that end, it's not just the AI tool, that's just the general algorithm of the platform.
Yes.
But those kind of platforms provide just so much data, and it's a pretty good generalized overview of who's engaging and how they're learning and that kind of thing.
On a larger scale, have you tried doing, I guess, talking about individually, have you looked at trying getting, I guess, all your student data assessments and looking for more broader trends of what's actually happening over time? I know data's a large part. So maybe getting everyone's assessments and getting the results and looking for patterns or gaps and things in their learning, a whole cohort as opposed to individual students.
Yeah, so as part of it, when I build up my spreadsheet, I'm building it up as the class list down one column and then each task across. Each question across, which I then feed off the AI, but then I'm doing some summary data of each column to see where the marks are being allocated. And I am a big fan of using conditional formatting for the kind of heat mapping and seeing where strong values are and weak values are and where those patterns are emerging. Yeah. And aligning that with a seating plan is usually an interesting exercise.
Okay. I've never thought of relating to a seating plan. That's interesting. Yeah. So you're just putting the data in manually. Have you tried I'm thinking I'm going to try this year is scanning, obviously running all the assessments because they're paper-based, I assume, through a photocopier, doing a PDF and dropping that PDF in and actually getting it to do analysis bulk that way?
Look, I have it.
I wonder if it'll work.
Partly on the data privacy stuff, I'm a little bit cautious of sending too much information out into the other. But I think that's a really interesting.
If you anonymize the data, you removed all the names off it, and then you're just looking at basically the calculations or whatever their workings, and then looking for common errors. Yes.
That would be interesting for sure. I'm really hoping the department puts together some AI tools that will let us do things like that and not have to worry about the data privacy element. I know they're working on that at the moment. I saw some recruitment ads going up.
Yes. Yeah.
As you said, we're a few years into it now. We're only just putting up ads.
Yeah. They move very slowly, but yes, they get there eventually.
Yeah,
that's good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, they do eventually get there. In what format, we'll find out, but it's still very early stages for a bureaucracy. It doesn't move that fast anywhere in the world, I don't think. Well, that's pretty cool. And general lesson plan, I guess, in terms of...
Yeah, look, just differentiation for the most part. Try to work out how do I scaffold this down a couple levels and up a couple levels. And in the Gifted and Talented program, I use it there to help me find connections between ideas and do that bit of brainstorming and again, upload some of the thinking. If there's something obvious, I'll use that. But sometimes there's a niche little connection between two curriculum points from across the curriculum and you know it in the back of your mind, you just wouldn't think of it off the top of your head. So when, you've got a limited amount of planning time, using tools like this to help you do that brainstorm element, it's very helpful. And it means that I can flick through a dozen ideas quickly and pick the best one for the context that I'm trying to go for and not have to worry too much about remembering everything or doing thorough research or digging out the old textbooks from the compactus and having to flick through those. Finding the right connections that will appeal to the right students in my class, I guess, is what it's great for.
Okay. Yep. Do you organize in ChatGPT? Do you use projects, folders and things like that, categorize your information? And then obviously you can upload files then for that particular type of chat.
Yeah, no, I do that. Yeah, I've got a few there where I've uploaded a bunch of the curriculum documents and associated resources that help us with structuring tasks and finding the connection and doing all those things. I actually used the projects features quite heavily in my most recent job application.
Okay.
And used it to adversarially work with me to improve my application or writing skills.
Yes. Yeah. I was showing some people last time that you can put your job advert up, put your resume or your application letter, put the advert, and ask it to find gaps of things you've missed according to the requirements of the job. In our case, we've got our selection criteria process.
Yeah.
And they can then look at that and say, yeah, oh no, you've covered all this point. Oh no, you haven't addressed this point in the applications. More, that's all trying to get away from people not really doing the work for you, but finding gaps and improvements in what you can do based on what
Yeah.
you create. And you can say, according to my resume, my selection criteria, yes, I've hit all the points. No, I haven't addressed this. I can go away and find more examples and then feed them in that hopefully get
Yeah.
that job.
Yeah. Yeah. And fascinating with the project tools, you can drop in things like the departmental focus 2026 or
Yes.
the cultural standards framework or all the different leadership models and things that have gone into what makes an effective leader in our system.
Yes.
And all the work behind it and the middle leaders framework now too. All those things that can feed in it will
Yes.
pick those apart and make sure you're aligning to as much of that as you can very clearly. And you can be quite assertive with it and tell it, I don't want to oversell myself and I don't.
But you don't want to undersell yourself.
And so you've got to come across strong, but not too strong.
Yes.
And it's actually gave it a few prompts where I encouraged it to take on the persona of different people I thought might be on the panel.
Oh, yes.
And what might they look for and that kind of, and it used it to basically critique me repeatedly until I was quite comfortable with where I was at.
You can even run a mock job interview for yourself using the verbal commands. So. And that's where I struggle to go, is that thinking and articulating a really good answer, because you can spend time with the writing. But yeah, that's cool. Excellent. I guess from your experience, I don't know how big the school is where you're being country. I guess does AI, and country is very important because in metro country, we have different sort of challenges and access to resources as well. I guess, does AI have the potential to support some equity in the classroom from your view, or does it risk it could disadvantage certain schools and groups or socioeconomic groups more, depending, I guess, in the context of what you're seeing is happening at the moment?
Look, I think just like any other tech change, you had the risk of having the haves and the have-nots. And so far what I've seen is, I guess you alluded to it earlier, that private systems probably got a bit of an advantage where they're a bit more flexible and they take on these new initiatives and adopt these new technologies a bit faster than we can. They've got the resources to vet them.
But also, though, at the moment, they allow, some big private schools, that's part of their normal routine for students. They actually have it open on their computers all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas our students aren't allowed that.
No. And so, we have those challenges where I guess some students will have the advantage of using them and others will not. I guess we're still very early days. So I don't know, you might have seen something that I haven't yet on the data of the efficacy of AI in the learning process and how it's having effects on student learning.
Yes. Yeah, I was just, my last episode, I quickly reviewed some reports from 2025, and one is the fact that this move away from content knowledge to application with AI, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess people argue that happened with the internet, that they could just Google the answer. But at the same time, I still always argue, without contextual knowledge, they don't know what questions to ask and how to assess it anyway. So it is a chicken and the egg. You can get great answers, but do those answers? And there was the reports saying students are not very confident in determining whether it's actually a true answer or not coming out of AI.
Yeah. Yeah. But I suppose to that end, it's also about making sure that we have enough educated teachers. I don't know if, most teachers, I would assume, wouldn't ask their large language model to provide them links to research or evidence of what it's saying for most of the prompts that they're going for. And that's become a very regular occurrence for me. And I'll make sure whenever it's not just creative writing practices, I'm asking for
the sources,
link to something so I can go and check out the source. Yeah, for sure. Because it's information literacy, right? And it's probably in a large way a very similar shift to when we first adopted the internet in a big way, and you don't know how valid or reliable.
I guess in some ways it's the way people viewed, I guess, Wikipedia in the early days. The whole model was anyone could write it, so is it true? It's the same sort of parallels.
Yeah. But it's been interesting to see, because I've been, again, working across a couple of different systems now with the curtain stuff as well. And just at the start of this year, they've pulled away from using AI detection tools.
Oh, they don't work.
No, it's hugely unreliable. Having said that, I've definitely read a few AI-generated assessment tasks.
Yes.
Which, when you've used it a little bit, you can see it pretty quickly. Having said that, though, if I've trained my ChatGPT to write fairly much like I do at this point, And so it's become harder and harder to tell. And so if you've become quite adept with the AI tools, it's going to be harder for people to determine if you're cheating or not.
Yeah. So when I
So
run
it means-
training, I normally get an essay. I write in front of 100% AI written in front of them, drop it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it passes, no worries at all. And this was the early days, and it writes much more natural now. And I've seen things which are completely human written. If they're writing in a certain style, it will say, oh, this is potential AI. It's more looking for styles of writing, more the actual content. Like I said, and I guess, unfortunately, for universities and schools, there's a whole business built around that, was it plagiarism? I won't mention the company out there that apparently they're trying to prove that they can check it, but they can't. But that's the whole business model.
Yes. They're pretty devastating for them, I imagine.
Yeah. I was talking to a colleague the other day, remember the craze they had for the last 10 years that everyone was outsourcing writing their essays to people in, I guess, India and things like that.
Yeah.
It's gone. You don't hear about that anymore. Obviously, it wiped out that entire essay writing industry that these people used to pay for.
Really?
Yes. That's good. I guess, in terms of your colleagues in your school, are you like an outlier using AI, or is there other colleagues that you talk and speak to within your school?
Look, I have a few colleagues that are developing their skills with it pretty quickly, and a few that are quite adept to a similar degree that I would be. And then I've got others that are against AI on moral grounds and the concerns around energy use and water consumption and these kinds of things, and taking in that regard it's unethical. I'm not entirely sold on that argument against. Yeah, I think it's just a small multiple of like a Google search as far as energy consumption, and that'll drop over time as things become more efficient. And once we get some more of these big AI data centers up and running and they're more efficient and they're
going to be in space according to the plan, that they don't need to cool in space and you get lots of free energy. It's
in space, under the ocean.
Under the ocean, people already do shipping containers under the ocean, so that just about 80%. But there's obviously, early stages, I guess, under our capitalist system where you always find more efficient ways to do things because therefore you make more money.
That's the way to do it. But I think too, there's a broad spectrum of people that are using it across my school. And from what I understand, it's pretty similar across the other regional schools that I interact with fairly frequently. People that are getting right on board and others not so much.
Yeah. Well, that's normal with all technology.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, not everyone can be at the forefront of these things, and other people need a long time to pick up these new skills.
Yes.
But I think it'll eventually save us a lot of work if we're clever about how we use it.
Yes.
And allow us to be some degree more efficient and effective at our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What degree that is, I'm not sure yet, but it will be it.
And does your leadership support it, or just let people do their own thing? Or has there ever been any direction like, go learn this tool, or anything within your professional development?
So I collaborated with a colleague from another school in the region. At one of our network meeting days a couple of years ago, we did a presentation on AI and how to use it. And a lot of concerns were raised from English teachers in particular about essay writing and all of that plagiarism stuff. But it was, that's probably about it as far as one form of PL that we've run. And on, I guess, the other side of that, my executive team are quite pro AI and using it, but haven't set out time for us to make some quality learning in that space.
Cool. Excellent. No, I like this last question. Okay. I guess if a colleague was answered is starting with AI, I guess what would be the first thing you get them to focus on? What would say, try this? What would be the first steps you would give them if someone wants to get into it and I guess a bit nervous?
I think I'd encourage them to just have a bit of a play initially and perhaps do a little bit of learning. The whole model of what a transformer is and how that might be a bit too technical. There's some great YouTube videos from 3Blue, Run Brown on that topic. It's probably a bit deep for most of your listeners, but for those in technical, that's probably a great way to go. But generally for a teacher that hasn't yet picked it up, I'd be looking at some simple things in your classroom like, hey, here's a worksheet. How can I differentiate this? Give me equivalent questions at a few different levels, especially in more literacy-based projects or classes, scaffold this text in one direction or another. That kind of thing I think is really helpful. I think having a look at if you want to have a bit of a vision of where it probably will end up going to some degree, the Khan Academy, the Khan Migo videos out there about, I think it was Great Gatsby. And so the students are interacting with Gatsby as the AI model, the AI model's picked up that persona. And he's responding to the student as that character and using the same terminology and vocabulary that the character would use in context and is from the code.
Yes. Yeah, it's good how taking that role, and I've done that.
Helping them do deep literature analysis. I think it's fantastic. And little things like that, I think, will help understand what it is and where it's going. And then there's a billion tools out there that you can jump on and it'll write a lesson plan for you and what have you. And depending on how well resourced your school is, you might already have a bunch of lessons and you don't need to worry too much about that. If you're in a school that isn't like that, getting it to building up a project and giving it all the documents and going through that whole process is a bit of work, but it can spit out some good quality.
It can do. And the thing is, beauty of it remembers, and you can build on it over time. So,
yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Have you got any interesting projects and things you're working on outside AI down there? You mentioned one you'd like to talk about.
So I've started working on this thing called the Middle Leaders Project, where I'm working with teachers who are already doing leadership work in their schools, but don't have those promotional titles yet. To help them articulate their impact with a bit more clarity and confidence, so they're ready for those middle leadership opportunities when they arise. So if your audience are interested,
where would they find that?
middleleadersproject.com.au.
Oh, cool. I might check it out myself. I was sort of sitting there as a level 3 classroom teacher in between, doing lots of things which are interesting, which I think is really cool as a teacher we can do. At the same time, I guess you're not got the formal positions like in those leadership roles, those, I guess, program controllers and coordinators and things in our context.
Middle lead for a while.
Yes.
And I think I've learned the trick. So I want to try and spread those ideas with other people and make sure that the right people are learning the right skills to move through that step. And it's not just all about personality and how much charisma you've got.
Yes. I'm sure there's a lot of demand, but because I know from the department side, there's very little development that's formally offered for people in that sort of range to progress themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff for people that are already in those middle leadership roles, but those people working towards it. There's a few offerings, but I think I've worked out something that will help with a lot of people in a similar position.
Cool. We'll put a link in the show notes for people to have a look at that.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Thank you for joining us today. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure this conversation will be really helpful for the thousands of teachers out there getting into AI. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Kane.